the CRP was like a permanent
Yeah.
set aside. We took 10% of our crop base out of production, called it conservation, and now we didn't have to worry about taking land out of production.
So all of this conversation, I clearly understand why you need to have a ag law program
Well,
to keep on top of all of this. Let's shift gears
sure,
to
to this book,
conservation.
yeah.
So I know that, as you mentioned, conservation, the land, the water, trips your trigger now more than the economics of the land of farming.
Yeah, well, let me no, but let me explain a little bit of that.
Yeah, that
I mean,
transition.
I'm still an agricultural lawyer, and I'm still interested in how the law applies to agriculture. But the agriculture we have today, agricultural law was designed to serve. Right? And a lot of people who are my contemporaries who were in ag law programs grew up on farms and saw the law as a way to serve their families and their neighbors and the people they grew up with. As agriculture consolidated, as the nature of it changed, I mean, I'll give you a good example. I mean, Iowa's always been big on pigs, right? When I was a kid, we probably had 15 million. 1970, we had pigs on, I believe, close to 80,000 farms out of the roughly 150,000 farms. So pigs were everywhere. And when pigs were everywhere, they didn't necessarily stink, right? They were just our pigs. Today, we have half again as many pigs, 25 million, on about 3,000 farms. And so we get rid of 90+% of the hog producers, consolidated them into much larger, corporate owned, contracted facilities. And in the process, we changed the politics of pigs, as well as we created a huge environmental problem with them as to how you handle the waste. And so, it's not that pigs aren't important in agriculture, but I didn't get into agricultural law to figure out how to represent people that raise a couple 100,000 pigs. I mean, somebody can do that, and a lot of my former students do. But and so, the opportunity after I retired, in particular, to do more writing and thinking about the land, which was the first book, The Land Remains, and then the next book, which was The River Knows, and now the new book, Through Nature's Lens, were really a way to just kind of express a lot of the thinking and things that I've seen around our state on these issues.
So let's talk about the books.
Okay.
So the first one was The Land
The
Remains.
Land Remains. Yeah.
And all three of these that are really based on a similar theme. And in this book, the land becomes a character.
Sure. It's narrated by the back 40, which is
of your farm,
which is a field on the farm that I grew up on. And so about a third of the book is written in the voice of the back 40, talking about what it's experienced and what it sees.
And the wonderful thing about this book is you get a perspective, first of all, how the earth formed and the geology of what created Iowa, the Midwest, in terms of its fertile land. But then you also get a very good understanding of how that has changed over the years as farming has gone from, when the first settlers came, to the small 200-acre farms of your childhood to now, 5,000 acre farms.
And the back 40 is still there, but it's owned by somebody else. It's farmed in many ways, in a different way. It's still a family farm, good farmers, they care for it. But, the land has a perspective as to what it sees happening around it.
And I think a lot of people don't think about the actual science of, you put a seed in the ground and you get water, but the plant, the mass of the plant obviously there's water. It's the land that becomes
Nutrients
the
that come out of the
nutrients in
soil.
the
Yeah.
soil.
Yeah.
And so that needs replenishing.
Yeah.
And you can
Or it
either,
can be mined,
yes,
which we're
Yeah.
doing in some ways. I mean, agriculture in Iowa, unfortunately, in many ways, is an extractive industry. It may not be quite as extractive as coal mining,
mhm,
but we certainly have lost a lot of soil. We still are. Soil erosion is a serious issue that we've been trying to deal with for 80 or 90 years, and we still have ways to go. But and you know, as thinketh the landowners, thus fares the land. And so part of the purpose of all three of the books is to get readers to think about their relationship, for example, to the land. When I inscribe The Land Remains to people, I usually say, listen to the land. And almost anybody who owns land has a sense of what that means, right? That when they're out walking on their land, thinking about what the land needs, thinking about how they're going to leave it because it's under their control, at least, under the way we approach things. And so, hey, helping people think, okay, well, if the land was talking to me, what would it be telling me?
yeah.
Right?
And when I read it, you approach the land kind of like I might approach a human being that I am caring for.
Sure. Okay.
And just as the human being is made up of lots of stuff, including there are more cells in our body that are bacteria and microorganisms than there are human cells.
Sure.
And they're not like freeloaders or pathogens. They are an important part of the ecosystem of our body. Similar process here. I mean, it's not just minerals.
No.
There's lots of microorganisms that make a healthy soil.
And there's lots of it that we haven't thought a lot about and don't know about as much as we should.
Mhm.
I mean, when we think about soil conservation, for example, we almost always think about it in a quantitative sense. Well, soil loss with 5 tons, and maybe that's too much, and it should be 2 tons, and that'd be great. But the amount of soil isn't exactly the same thing as, well, how about the health of the soil, right? And so what do you mean by soil health? Oh, well, is it compacted, right? Is it carbon content, water porosity, right?
Let me
The
throw out an
goodies that are inside
analogy,
it.
and you can tell me if it's similar. So, if we use indiscriminate use of antibiotics in human beings, we'll
Kill the
wipe
gut
out
flora.
the normal flora, and we can change our whole ecosystem of our body. I would imagine that a similar thing could happen with too many insecticides that end up affecting the whole ecology of the land that affects the nature of the soil.
And fertilizer, same way. You can basically poison the soil, or you can compact it. Now, the person you gave all these antibiotics to, they say, oh my gosh, are they healthy? Well, they're healthier than they were, whatever was killing them. But could they be healthier, right? Do you keep them on those antibiotics all the time, right? Or do you work with nature as opposed to against it? And we've spent a lot of time working against nature. And I think, you and I've had conversations about this, because this kind of brings the issue forward to where we are today. Lots of concern and interest about the role that our diet and nature play in our health. And, I think many people are beginning to think about, well, maybe there's a real connection between healthy soil producing healthier food. Because not every bushel of corn is the same, right? Not every sugar beet's the same. I mean, the health of those things are in part a function of how they were raised and what they were raised in. And can we make our food healthier by having a healthier agricultural system, as well as it being healthy for the people who are living on it and working on it?
Stick with me with the analogy for a bit. So we're now focusing on holistic approach to health, where it's eating healthy, exercising, having a stress reduction, and we believe that this sort of healthy living ends up leading to a healthier body. What would be the analogy for a holistic approach to
Sure.
your family farm?
Well, I think a couple of things would come to mind. One, there'd probably be livestock in it somewhere, because the livestock give you a way to use marginal ground, right? They can eat the forages. You aren't plowing up the hillsides, right? The livestock are depositing their manure, providing a form of fertilizer. It's more diverse, right? So, oh my gosh, you think of all the news we've heard about soybeans, and Chinese aren't buying soybeans, and oh my gosh, everybody's going broke. Well, if you're only raising soybeans, that's a challenge. How about if you were raising something else? And so having a more diversified operation,
Beef prices
having-
are up. If you had some
having,
of those,
having a balance. Well, the part of the problem is,
Mhm.
the soybean growers are raising cattle. 50 years ago, yeah, a lot of them would have been raising cattle, and they got out of cattle because, oh my gosh, I want to raise soybeans. And so now you see all this huge equipment, which is bigger than they probably need. It's only used a few days of the year, but my gosh, we wouldn't want to share equipment with anybody else because we want to be able to do it when I want to do it, right? And then, well, how did I end up in? I have this wonderful cartoon I used to, that I use in my teaching materials. And, it's this farmer, and he's going, well, I'm not making any money. Crop prices are down, and a tractor costs too much. And it kind of goes through a cycle. And he gets to the end, he says, well, maybe I need a bigger tractor. Right. And so it's just this kind of this circle.
So I am aware of time. So what we're
Okay.
going to do right now is
Okay.
we talked a little bit about the land remains
Mhm.
and how the North 40, right?
Back 40.
Back 40. Sorry, the
40.
back 40
It was on the
Beach-
southeast corner.
southeast
in the
corner
middle of the
was a
section.
character in the book.
Yeah.
And we sort of learn about land. And then your second book, which
River
is
Nose.
The River Nose, has as a character a river.
The Raccoon River
And,
is the narrator.
And so it takes us through this interconnection of agriculture, the land, and then the quality of the water.
Sure.
And then you're
Told in part through the story of the raccoon, which, anyone in central Iowa knows has played a significant role, both from a flooding standpoint, as a source of litigation, even to this summer with the lawn watering ban, right?
Mhm.
This amazing convergence of issues that have made us much more aware of what's happening in the river and
the watershed of the raccoon is kind of like the entire
It's
northwest
about
corridor.
10 million acres of the quarter center, well, about a third of the state
Mhm.
in the Des Moines and the Raccoon.
Right.
Yeah.
And obviously the raccoon flows into the Des Moines. So you get a feel for how, everything is interconnected, and including what we do with our land it affects
It's a great
our
book.
water. It's a great book.
Great.
You're
I
now-
think you probably blurbed on it too, right?
I
And-
did.
yeah.
Well, we read them in book club. And your most recent book, which just came out,
I just got them
Today.
in fact,
Today.
from the publisher.
and all
delivered a
three of
couple
these are
hundred
from
copies.
Ice Cube Press.
Yeah.
Now, this is Through the Nature's Lens, and I've read an excerpt of it, but I haven't read the whole thing. How would you say it compares or contrasts to the land remains and the river nose? Who is the main character? Is it Mother Nature, and does she have a female gender, or?
Well, it's interesting because it is nature,
Uh-huh.
and in nature's voice early on, it says it realizes that oftentimes it's referred to in a gendered way when we think of Mother
Uh-huh.
Nature, but it could also be,
Right. So did you neuter
Well, I
The
say
m-
it could be
Mother
it
Nature?
could be either or both, but under our current political regime, that's not acceptable apparently to be both. But so the reader gets to decide what they want it to be.
So do you use they and them instead of he
I
and
think
her?
I use nature,
Okay.
without
Okay.
having to put
So
a pronoun.
nature
in.
becomes a
But-
character in this
Yeah.
book. Yeah.
It's the narrator.
And would you say that it brings together water, land, and air?
you're not asking this question, though I'm sure some people might. They say, well, did he just write the same book 3 times? Right. Which I don't think I did. Right.
Okay.
I mean, there's some overlap because certainly the land's talked about and the water's talked about, but the use of nature as a narrator, I think, steps back and takes a broader perspective. Certainly the land's part of nature because it's kind of the stage and it's maybe how we picture nature. But there's much more to nature. You think of wildlife and just scenic beauty really is part of nature. And so um, it, it it's a little sharper, I think. Each of the books has maybe become a little bit more critical.
More critical of modernity or modern industrial agriculture.
Yeah, well, and it's not entirely focused on agriculture, right? But there's, it's hard in Iowa to escape agriculture being the major kind of active user.
Right, because don't we have like almost 80% of our land under cultivation?
Yeah, depending on how you
Uh-huh.
measure it. But yeah, we are the most altered state in the nation. And we have next to the smallest percent of land as public land of any
So
state
you
in the
can't
nation.
really talk about nature in Iowa without talking about
yeah.
agriculture.
But even then, when you think about it, and I think, one of the strengths of all 3 of the books, I hope, is that they're written in a sense of hope. I mean, there are
Yeah.
good things happening
Mhm.
in our state. There are beautiful places. There are lots of nature related activities underway. And so it's not like we're, working on, a disaster zone. There are a lot of good pieces out there. How we protect them,
Mhm.
how we create more of them,
Mhm.
how you work with the landowners who want to improve them, how communities can think about hopefully reversing the course of water because water's getting worse in the state, even though we have all types of happy talkers who want you to
Yeah.
believe that things are getting better. But it's hard to know that. And I don't know whether we're going to talk about the water monitoring system.
We're
but
going to go to
it's-
questions.
Oh,
We're
okay.
almost out of time, Neil.
Okay.
But I do thank you for bringing us back that this is also about hope.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there are so many people that are involved in projects to make things better.
Yes.
And part of what you do, I'm so glad you brought that up. It isn't just to point fingers at how things have deteriorated, but give us a view for how there is a lot of research and individuals using methods to help restore
Yeah.
our earth, our water, and nature.
And we can't think about how we're going to improve things unless we have thought about where we are
Mhm.
and how we got there. And there's a quote, I think it's in The Land Remains. It's by James Baldwin, and it's to the effect that people who believe that history flatters them are like a butterfly on a pin, unable to move in the world or change their perspective. And one of our challenges is we're pretty sure history flatters us, right? We're doing a great job taking care of the land. Nobody was here apparently before we showed up, which is one of our challenges, right? I mean, any Iowa farm kid, history began when your settlers, your immigrant family arrived, right? We learn nothing and think nothing about prehistory or how it is that we came to have the land, or who came not to be able to have the land, which is part of the story as well. And if you're pretty sure that what you're doing is right, then when somebody says, well, maybe you could do a better job, they say, well, why would I? Well, I mean, I'm kicking it. But
Yes. Well, thank you for, identifying problems, but also leaving us with hope.
I
And
hope
we're gonna open up for questions. So
Yes, we have a
over
question here.
Angelina.
Hi, I have a quick one. As a consumer going to the store, and we're talking about antibiotics and all that, you see these things about organic vegetables and all, and fruits, or I don't know about
Sure.
fruits, but also grass eating. It will say it
Grass-fed
on there.
beef, yeah.
So other than the difference in prices, one being more than the other, which is beneficially healthy to select?
Well, it's a great question. And I think, consumers have to, make their own decisions in terms of what it is that motivates them. One of the values of the organic label is that, at least from a legal standpoint, it is established, right? And that to become certified organic, you have to meet a set of rules, you have to be inspected. And so there's a certain amount of integrity with it. Now, whether or not, and many people, right, buy organic food because, okay, well, that's a way I know I could try to avoid pesticides, residues, and it's a way I can reward producers who are farming perhaps the way I would like them to. There's a proliferation of labels in the marketplace. Grass-fed beef is a good example. Humanely raised might be another one. Natural, right? Some of them, it's unclear what they mean because they really aren't standardized. Others, the animal welfare is, humanely raised, and you look at who it is that certified them. If you're concerned about animal welfare, you don't want to, for example, buy pork that was from pigs that were raised in gestation crates, for example. That's one of the ways that you could avoid them. But the point that I think you're touching on, and this is also an area that's going to grow in the future, is that consumers have a lot of potential influence, much more than perhaps they have utilized. And it's too easy for people to assume that the only thing that motivates people is price. And price certainly is important. But we make choices, and there are a lot of people who would choose to want to eat differently. I describe it typically as the better food movement. And it's better in whatever better means to you. It was locally raised by somebody I know. Okay, I put a face on the farm. I could go out and see it. I know my money's supporting somebody who's, right, taking care of land locally. Maybe it's organic, right? But, and this is where, and another part of agricultural law, let me just say, is that about 20 years ago, I taught a class called Food in the Law. It was the first law school class in the nation on that subject. And now that food in the law has become kind of a major component of the agricultural law and food in the law. And I came to it in part because I was doing all this teaching around production from the farming standpoint. But if you walk through the window and kind of turn around, here's a whole other set of issues. Food safety and nutrition and food availability and hunger. And there's a whole suite of policy and legal issues that relate to that subject as well. And so giving consumers the opportunity to use their buying power to try to change how products are raised, that's an important part of the role of agriculture going forward. And there's a lot of people in agriculture who just assume consumers didn't use that. It's kind of like, shut up and don't complain with your mouth full, right? Trust us, it's good for you.
Well, we have run out of time. So
we'll have
we're
to
gonna
come
have
back.
to have part two.
Yeah, part
Because
two.
we hardly
We've
scratched
hardly dipped our toe
this-
into the water.
in the water or scratched the surface of the land.
Well, yeah,
Yes.
we've done a
So
little of that.
and we didn't really get much into talking about the environment and agriculture and cancer. So that'll
Which
be
is
part
an
two.
important subject.
Very
yeah.
important.
Yeah, and it, as you well know, comes out of the nature summits, which
So
I've,
for those
supported.
watching, if you want to learn more about nature, the Nature Summit is coming up next week.
Mhm.
It's November
19th and 20th.
19th and 20th at the Olmsted Center at Drake,
They can go to iowanature.org
and
to find out
register.
more. Yeah.
And if you forget to register, just show up. They don't like it, but you can show up and register in person
Yeah.
at the Olmsted Center. See, he doesn't like it, but if you forget how to register, just come to the Olmsted Center.
And there's a famous doctor Audrey Chan Lamb. No, Dick Deming, in fact, is on the
So,
program on.
We're
at
out of
10
time.
Oh,
but thank
at
you.
10:30
Yes.
on Wednesday morning, the
But
19th.
great series of
And
books.
along
So if
with
you're
Audrey.
interested in the land, the water, and nature, especially as it relates to Iowa, Neil Hamilton series of books, Ice Cube Press, and you can get them also at
Beaverdale, Barnes
Books
and,
and Barnes and Nobles,
Amazon,
and Amazon,
wherever, yeah.
wherever you
Wherever
buy your
good books are
books.
sold.
If you are watching this evening and would know someone that would benefit by watching it, this show will be available on demand beginning tomorrow at the Above and Beyond Cancer YouTube channel and also the Mercy Cancer Center website. I hope you'll join us again next week. Thanks, everyone.